Oh, Linda, it's so great to see you today. I'm so excited to have this fireside chat with you on this most important topic that we've chosen here, mental health for leadership excellence, key challenges and solutions for women leaders.
Thank you, Shari. It's so great to join you this morning.
It's wonderful. This emerged kind of organically through a conversation that we had, and we both feel very, very passionate about women in general and women and leaders and leadership and certainly in mental health. So maybe can you take a moment and introduce yourself, and then I will introduce myself.
Absolutely. So I'm Dr. Linda Lang. I am a psychiatrist. I've been in psychiatry for over 25 years, and about half of my career I've spent in leadership positions in mental health, supporting and mentoring young physicians, young leaders, and also, of course, taking care of patients with mental health challenges.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, thank you for doing that for so many years. It's incredible. We were introduced by a mutual friend, which kicked off a very deep friendship, and it's been
Yes.
wonderful getting to know you over the years. And
Um,
yeah, so
Same.
I'm actually an executive leadership coach and business strategist, and crazy passionate horse lover, author, and speaker. And I help women leaders navigate change and really step into their authentic power with confidence and clarity and deepen trust and really achieve the impact that they're looking to achieve in this world. But before that, I was an environmental scientist for 20 years, and I've kind of jumped off and on the corporate track for a long time. Some folks call me the queen of reinvention. So always looking for that container and that context where I can add the most value to the world. And this iteration is here now. So excited to talk about this, and I'll just kind of jump right in here if we're ready. We're ready to go.
Absolutely.
Okay. So we were thinking that it might be helpful to kind of talk about I have a few little notes here that I'll reference some of our top leadership challenges that we've experienced either personally or we've seen some of our clients or colleagues go through with respect to mental health or just in general being a woman in the workforce.
Yes.
And
Yes.
then look at some potential examples and stories and also suggest some of the solutions that we've found to work really well for us over the years and for also for our clients. And then finally, really, I'd love to hear your thoughts on, what are some of the key indicators when it's really time to see a mental health practitioner, a psychiatrist, a counselor, somebody outside of your, somewhere, a place where you can really get treatment. So that's going to be an important part of our conversation as well.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for outlining that. I'm excited to cover a lot of territory with you. The challenges that I faced because I'm a baby boomer were deciding to have a career and a family and then figuring out how to balance that. Back in those days, it was not easy. There were, we didn't have parental leave, and the expectations were different. You were expected to be a great mom and a great employee and show up for everything with perfection. And it could be very stressful at times. I had days where I had to make a decision. Do I go to work or do I stay home with a child who has a fever? Um, Patients might be sick and they need me. Everyone needs something from me. Of course, we become the last to take care of ourselves. We come last in line. So I think that was a challenge for me. I have seen, and I'm happy to say this, I have seen that some of the younger generations of women seem to have overcome that. They set boundaries, they make sure that they have what they need. If they need a schedule that allows them more work-life balance, they find a job that allows that. And it's a little bit different and the needle has moved. So I'm, happy to be able to say that. Though I still think it is a challenge, and
Mhm.
some women are deciding not to have families and choose career over family or choose family over career. One of the challenges that really keeps me up at night is stigma, mental health stigma, because when we do start to hit the wall and we can't bounce back, it's not always a comfortable conversation to have. It's not something that we feel we can expose. So I'm an ambassador for the Dr. Lorna Breen Heroes Foundation. Lorna Breen was an emergency room physician in New York and worked during the COVID pandemic in an emergency room in New York City. As you can imagine, very, very tough time. And unfortunately took her life because of a series of challenges, burnout, COVID herself, and needed to be there and lead her team and not leave them alone, not abandon them. She was needed to take care of patients, support her team. And I think we face that, as leaders. We are the chief, we are the captain of the ship. If we're not there showing up and showing up strong, we're going to let other people down, and that's almost impossible to do. So to me, that is, one of the biggest challenges. How do we break through that and allow people a mental health day or some space to have a bad day and take some time off before hitting the wall?
Yeah, such a great point. Yeah. And I don't know, maybe it was the same for you growing up, is that was not allowed. You just needed to suck it up and go to work or go to school or whatever, mental health day. What's that? You just
Hmm.
you just muscle through. And
That's
same thing
right.
with being sick even. You could
Right.
be completely germ filled and yet you're supposed to go to school. Now,
Oh,
luckily that's not so much,
yeah.
but it developed, I think, a lot of leaders now in their 50s, 60s and older in their 70s who still hold on to that. I have to muscle through.
Hmm.
And I don't know if you've seen this, but I've seen some of their children who have adopted that same type of philosophy, even though the context has changed in the current day. It's a
Hmm.
little bit more flexible. There's still this drive to take care of everybody and take care of everything and be perfect, as you mentioned
Yes.
earlier in the
Yes.
conversation. And what
Yes.
I found with that, certainly I'm not working in the clinical space, although if I notice things coming up with my executive coaching clients, I'm getting better about reading the signals where I will refer them to a mental health professional if I feel
Mm-hmm.
that we're going into some territory that really could use some experience in that space.
Hmm.
So, but what I do see is a lot of anxiety
Yeah.
and a lot of self-doubt. So if I
Mhm.
was going to look at the challenges there, I was just noted a few things, is the ability to be very, very present to whatever's
Mhm.
happening moment to moment. And the low grade anxiety because of either workload, expectation, or combination of all of that, roles, responsibilities, that erodes your ability to be fully present unless you're
Yeah.
conscious and intentional about that. And then what happens if you're not fully present? You don't have access to the full executive functioning part of your brain, as you
That's
know,
right.
because we're going into fight, flight, freeze. And so there's part of the brain's ready to run out the door or look for the escape route. And the other part of the brain's like, oh, wait, I gotta be here right in this meeting or this thing. I gotta show up a certain way. So we're actually compromising our decision making and we're not able to optimize our impact in that space. Have you seen that too?
Oh my goodness, that is just so beautifully said and so true. Our brains start to play tricks on us when when we're anxious or fatigued or, getting to the point of burnout, and things start to seem like we're not good enough. There's a self-doubt, feeling I'm not as good as the person next to me. I might lose my job. I'm going to get fired. We, diminish ourselves. But I also think that the biases that the baby boomers faced were external. There were lots of gender biases and high expectations, and perhaps now some of that is gone, but we do it to ourselves. As you were saying, the children of baby boomers, we're self-imposing perfectionism. There's lots of competition out there too. to and a pressure to achieve and be, at the highest level, make lots of money and, get the best job. Um, so I think absolutely, and the anxiety that goes with that is paralyzing sometimes.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And that piece around self-doubt you mentioned earlier, I see it all the time, and it shows up as a self-trust issue as well. It just they second guess, third guess, fourth guess, go around. And I've done this myself. I do sometimes I go down these crazy rabbit holes. I'm like, well, what are you doing? You have all of these tools. And the problem with me is that I'm consciously aware of what I'm doing, so I know
Yes.
that I'm getting anxious, I'm getting nervous, and I'm self-doubting, and I'm doing this, and I'm spin, spin,
Mhm.
spin, spin, spin. And I have the tools to be able to navigate that. And even with that understanding and the competence in that space, sometimes I'm sideways, and I really, really
Yeah.
have to go sit by the wetland or just ground in there and
Yes.
meditate and touch my horses or play with my cat
Yes.
and do all of those kinds of things to just, whew, ground that energy. Because it's especially, I don't know if you're feeling it now, there seems to be just this pervasive uh, energy, vibration out there of instability. Just all this,
Yes.
it doesn't matter politically where you are on any of that
Yes.
kind of stuff, but just the instability and the vibes zipping along, and we're living beings, so we kind of
Yes.
feel some of that.
Yes, there's a lot of uncertainty and things that we haven't navigated before, all kind of happening in a confluence of events, whether
Yeah.
it's, climate or, tragedies or politics. It's overwhelming, and I hear a lot from peers and, people that I reach out to outside of work that are talking about just that uncertainty about what will happen. How do we navigate through? We can't use the same tools perhaps that we used to use before when we, face challenges. I wanted to mention too the imposter syndrome because when you and I started working together, thank goodness, you were able to help me navigate through the imposter syndrome. There was, this feeling that I had that I'm not good enough, and I haven't achieved as much as the other people at the table. I don't know enough. I haven't gone to an Ivy League school, or, um, I'm a psychiatrist, sort of the low person on the totem pole compared to the cardiovascular surgeon. And a lot of it is the way people present themselves. There's a certain confidence that people present with, but their value, we can't compare I can't compare my value to the person next to me. We're all at the table because we bring value. And with your incredible help and support, it took a while for me to see that, but boy, is that something that is paralyzing.
Linda, you are such an incredible person. Thank you for being vulnerable and open and trusting this environment to be able to express that and share that. I know your story will help so many people, because we look at you, I look at you and think, how could that ever have possibly happened to this polished, professional, incredible person who has dedicated her life to serving others at the highest level in mental health? How is this possible? And to have someone like you suffering from imposter syndrome, it's I just bless you for coming forward with that, because so many people are. There's so many
Yeah.
women, many of my former clients and even myself, we felt very similarly. And
Mhm.
you have to just kind of stand there, adopt the posture,
Yeah.
and get
Yeah.
in there and do the best that you can.
Yeah.
And once we begin to, this is why I'm so kind of, my work is really focused now a lot around power. I mean, I've been talking
Mhm.
about energy and energy dynamics for years and years and years, from my work with horses and people and all of these kinds of things. Because, the horses know how to read energy and intention so fast, all of those invisible forces humans are not quite as savvy to, but we're affected by them. And so
Mhm.
now what I'm looking at is this concept of power, energy and power. So how do you embrace your power? And you've done this so beautifully in the way of shedding because the power is always there. The power is there. We're born with the power, but we get layered on all of these societal expectations, misappropriations, and interpretations and things that then start to mold us into these certain little ways that we think we
Yeah.
need to behave. And when you're able to release some of those layers one by one by one, and boy, is it an exhausting and kind of a traumatic process at times,
Yes.
and liberating,
Yes.
you start to see and feel, and then you have this gravitas and this presence. It just happens. It isn't like you go after and you practice being present.
That's right.
It's
That's
just
right.
there.
That's so true. And that was, really an aha moment for me when I remember talking with you about that, like just something clicked and I started to feel differently. It was very organic. There wasn't anything in particular except the work and the energy and the understanding of being able to identify and quickly shift when you see something that you used to do and to do it differently and deploy different tools, get rid of the noise,
Ah,
in your head. I also, women, at least my generation, we're supposed to be feminine and be poised and have a certain, way of showing up. I mean, I remember someone telling me my skirt was too short or my hair wasn't, professional. And no one would say that to a man that, you're not wearing a tie or your hair's, not in place. We have so many things that we have to address before we even get to the power. And then owning that power feels not feminine. It feels like we're not being women if we're being strong and powerful and assertive and,
mhm,
speaking our voice at the table.
mhm.
It's an interesting journey to get to the point of letting all of those things converge and be who we really are, be authentic and feel valued for that.
Oh, such great points. Yeah, and being powerful and strong and feminine.
Hmm.
What is that? We have some really great examples out there now, but not necessarily when we grew up, might have been a little bit different, but we have some really great people in that space now. And even though we do have those contemporary examples, I still find in the workplace, right now, people who go at the C-suite, who
Hmm.
are at the C-suite, having C-suite meetings, and they're a little bit shaking in their shoes
Hmm.
for
Hmm.
whatever reason. Could be the CEO and the woman is a CEO and they have the imposter syndrome thing going on.
Hmm.
It
Hmm.
could be a CFO or a COO or a CMO or any of those other C's in the C-suite,
Hmm.
chief
Hmm.
operating officer or one of those, or any leader in the organization who's going to these meetings and they don't feel like their voice is being heard. I
Yeah.
deal with that every day, in my
Yeah.
work,
Yeah.
and have had to deal with that myself. And part of that is being able to embrace the vibration. So there's that, as you were mentioning, there's this undercurrent, and there's a mix of, am I good enough?
Hmm.
All of these insecurities that happen. And it's also a growth edge. So what I found is it's not comfortable when you're growing and learning. It's not
Hmm.
comfortable. you're going to feel that thing.
Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily mean you're not good enough or you have a mental health issue or anything. That's normal.
That's
It's
that's
normal to feel a little anxious and a little
Mhm.
worried and a
Oh,
little
yeah.
nervous because that sparks a little bit of that adrenaline, helps you focus, and it'll actually improve your game if it doesn't take you over. Because if the fear starts getting too high, then your power is compromised. So what we want to do is be able to feel that emotion. This is one of the things that I work on a lot. Feel that emotion. And the other piece of this is that excitement can
Hmm.
feel similar to anxiety a little bit.
Hmm.
There's a little, so if we can get the excitement, like, yeah, I'm excited to share and I'm nervous to share.
Hmm.
I'm more excited to share than nervous. So can we dial this guy down a little bit more? dial the
Mhm.
excited to share, and
Mhm.
then excited to share, then we have to go into the why. So I think I'm probably jumping ahead a little bit into some solutions, but
Mhm.
these are things that you can do if you find yourself in this position. Is you got to get beyond ego, right? We have to get the self
Mhm.
under the self is starting to panic. It's like, oh, the instrument's gone, it's offline. Woo. Okay, so we go to the higher thing. What's the vision? What's the why?
Mhm.
Why are we here? What
Right.
connect with that importance of the vision of the goal achieved? Why are we
Mhm.
putting our time into this? That takes the pressure off of you individually and even the
Mhm.
collective, and it puts it outside into being of service to something higher than any individual, and that
That's
really
right.
can help.
And, I think knowing that what you're trying to communicate, the points that you're trying to get across, even if it's not being heard or absorbed, it's still important to put out there. The person receiving the information may not be ready to hear it.
Ah,
Mental health is a big one because when I'm talking with, and this isn't true now, but in, previous leadership roles, um, really trying to make the point that mental health and having organizations that create access to mental health, spending money investing on mental health for employees and for teams, getting that point across was not always easy because it's not cancer and pediatrics and not a big money maker type of field. So um, when we speak to people as leaders and we speak to other people in C-suite, they may not be ready. They may be in a totally different place, working on something else. We come along with our passion and I've realized with your help too, the situational awareness that
mm,
it's okay. It
mm,
doesn't diminish what we're trying to say and what we believe in. We can keep working at it. It's not always easy,
no,
especially those things that are less popular,
mm,
and more difficult for people to embrace and get their head around. Mental health is a tough one because we have to think about what about my own mental health? What about my family? Through COVID, we really came out of COVID with much deeper understanding and openness and acceptance, less stigma about mental health. So I think we've gotten a lot better. People, there isn't a person out there who hasn't been touched in some way, family, neighbor, friend. So, the conversations are a little bit easier to have, but that energy that if you're intuitive, you can see somebody is looking at you and they're like sort of glazed over, or their minds are thinking about something else because they're not ready.
not ready. Yeah.
And I've learned really with your help that it's not me. What I'm saying is true to the core. It's something I believe in. It's important. And it's just not the right time.
Oh, such a great point. Such a great point. Yeah, and I love what you're saying about that because and it's still important. So you're seeding the idea. If we're
Yes.
looking, so we have to manage our own expectations. If we're looking for
Mhm.
full acceptance on the first date, kind of first exposure,
Right.
that's not it's not realistic, most likely, because you do need to seed the ground. We need to nurture the soil. We need to prepare.
That's
So, right person, right time, right topic, right
yes.
conversation. And the timing part often requires a lot of patience unless you are in a triage mode where you just need to make something happen right away, and then it
Yes,
just needs to happen.
that's right.
Um, yeah, and I love what you said about it. All of this is just so important, and the fact that COVID somehow started to, or post-COVID now started to kind of normalize or raise more awareness about the fact that the issues of isolation,
Mhm.
some depression, anxiety. We've had a lot of folks suffering as a
Yeah.
result of the, excuse me, all of the lockdown, and it's really changed people. And
It has.
I think that in some ways it's been healthy for all of us to see, oh, wow, this is whether we have experienced it ourselves or we've seen it in a loved one or someone at work. We
Hmm.
now have a better understanding of some of these mental health issues. So
Really.
I'm curious, do you want to go into mental health indicators? Like, so I would love to hear this from you. What
Uh-huh.
kinds of signs, if you're at work, and you're struggling with maybe a coworker, or
Mm-hmm.
it could be yourself too, but even noticing signs in others is helpful as
Hmm.
well. Not
Hmm.
that we're going to make a sweeping judgment on them or anything, but just
Hmm.
some like little signs where you're like, ooh, something might be off there, and that person
Hmm.
might need help, or maybe it's me, I need help, and I need to
Hmm.
self-identify.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think when you're working in an environment with people that you know and work with every day, you begin to know their patterns, how they like their coffee when they go to lunch, or, their kids' birthdays. I mean, we know each other. We work together. We're spending, a good portion of our time with our coworkers. So I think the first noticing is a change, just some simple, subtle change,
Mm,
that a coworker may not be concentrating or not getting their work done or seem kind of tired, not as animated, not passionate for the work, withdrawn, maybe not accepting invites for after work happy hours, um, moody, irritable. In
mm,
in healthcare, what we see, and the Lorna Breen Foundation really talks about this too, is the compassion for our patients. We kind of lose that feeling of compassion.
mm,
We're so exhausted that we can barely have self-compassion. So taking care of others becomes really challenging and exhausting.
mhm,
And, eventually the fatigue sets in. Sometimes people, drink, they take
mhm,
on drinking, or sleep is a big one. A lot of people have difficulty sleeping, and then,
mhm,
exhaustion sets in. Um, and people have asked me this, and what I say is it's really not your job to do something to fix people. We try, we want to fix people, but if you are a trusted friend or coworker, I think just having that conversation with the person next to you and saying, "Hey, are you okay? Can I, help you? Here's some numbers. Here's the employee assistance program that we have. Can I help you get to an appointment? You seem like you're not yourself. Do you want to share anything? Is there anything going on that I can be of help with?" Now, I have to say, most of the time that works. Sometimes people get offended, especially if it's a leader to a mentee. People have been offended and said, "Well, what do you mean? Am I okay? That's really not your business, what's going on in my personal life." But I don't know. I'd be interested to hear what you think. Is it our business, or, I always think it is. I don't have boundaries when it comes to mental health. I feel like I've got to do something, someone has to, but I wonder what you think about, is that okay?
Yeah, thanks. I don't know. It's interesting to hear your perspective, and thank you for sharing these indicators. I wrote them down, kind of really looking for a change, some kind of even a nuanced, subtle change, and
Mhm.
then kind of watching it over time, and looking maybe withdrawn, moody, irritable, this kind of compassion fatigue, I think we call it.
Yes,
That piece, maybe
exactly.
drinking, sleep deprivation, of these kinds of things. And so for me, I love the question, or the gentle question of, "Are you okay?" Just starting
Mhm.
with that,
Mhm.
and the defensiveness. Like, if somebody's going to ask me that,
Mhm.
I'm thinking like that. Yeah, I better trust them. I better know
Yeah.
them. I kind of, if it came from somebody else, I'm like, well, what do you mean? And
Yeah.
all of a sudden, my facade is now coming down, and I'm really not okay. Save me.
Yes.
And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's. I don't know. I don't know. So with clients for myself, I'll notice it when they're not able to make the shifts. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So they may have made the investment in executive coaching or their company did or whatever, and they're really sticky. We talk about being stuck, and there's being stuck that you can actually move past being stuck using, I mean, you have, I have, we can do that. And then there's people who say they really want something and they can't make the shift.
Mm-hmm.
There's something in, maybe it's the chemical wiring or
Mm-hmm.
something, and they really do need some chemical medical support
Mm-hmm.
to get the right blend of chemical cocktail so that they
Mm-hmm.
can start to see new options. And or they're ruminating on an old pattern, an old
Yeah.
story, and it's keeping them in the past, and they
Yeah.
keep wanting to travel down into the past to
Mm-hmm.
dissect and dissect and dissect,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
that to me is a sign that a therapist might be a
Yeah.
better and I work with a lot of people who are seeing a therapist and they work with me, which is perfect.
Yes.
It's awesome
Mm-hmm.
because then they're
Yeah.
getting that, and that we can kind of go back and forth and
Mm-hmm.
make sure that we're clear on both, because what I'm focused on is I will pay attention to all of that, and I'm looking at where are we right now, where is this person, organization, what's happening right here, and then where do we want to go. So we're bridging this gap, right? We're trying to come from here to here. We do a little bit back here, but it's mostly here. So I think a lot of the therapy is pulling from uh, reframing or helping somebody recharacterize what's happened to them in their youth so that they can be healthy here, so that they can then move on. Does that
Exactly.
make
Oh,
sense?
that, yes, you really are spot on. And, processing what happened. Um, we do need to sort of get it right in our mind, um, and understand it for what it is in order to, make that shift, and change or pivot. And, I think about like resilience. We used that word a lot, over the last, 5 years or so. We use the word resilience, and we all have challenges in our personal lives, certainly at work and as leaders. And being a leader requires that you have resilience, that you can bounce back, but also understanding that the challenges are gifts that we learn from. I had a CEO who, my first woman CEO that I ever worked with some years ago, and we had a challenge that I was just very embarrassed about. I felt like it was my fault. There was a program that I closed, and it just kind of set in motion all of these consequences that were unintended. And she said to me, as I was trying to, profusely apologize, she said, "I could never have learned as much as I have in this one challenge. It was, an incredible learning experience, and allowed me to understand so much about, the climate that we're working in." And that just stuck with me, that we grow from those challenges. They truly are gifts, and being able to bounce back, move on, and have even more tools in our toolbox, be more effective, from the challenge. That's resilience. And it's really important to get rid of the old vestiges and things that we carry on our back from our childhood, so that we can have that kind of flexibility and adaptability and be resilient.
So great, Linda. I love how you said that. So smart. And at the organization level. So when you have a leader who's resilient and adaptable and flexible, that's
Yeah.
also reflected hopefully in their leadership style,
Right.
and it benefits the organization, the team and the organization as a whole. So
Yeah.
I love what you're saying, especially now. It's critical to be adaptable, flexible, be able to pivot, get new information, and embrace it. Even if it's that's not what I wanted. A data that
Yes.
came in really looking not so great. Okay, well, what are we going to do here? We can do nothing and just really assess in the moment. We stay with the status quo. We need to make a radical shift. We just need to change one variable or one department. What are we going to do? So being very conscious and intentional right now, and not be driven by fear. I think that's
Yeah.
the big thing that I think if I'm going to bottom line, I like to bottom
Hmm.
line things, is just watch out. So when fear's starting to take over, then we're
Hmm.
losing our power. Fear
Hmm.
is great. It'll motivate you and it'll get you
Yep.
to a place of safety, and we need to do that.
Yes.
So that's what it's there for. But an
Hmm.
overabundance of fear, chronic fear and worry and anxiety erodes your power, erodes your effectiveness, erodes your whole ecosystem that you're living in. Everyone around you suffers, and it draws
Mm.
you down. So we just need to be conscious and intentional about, where are those little leaks? What can I plug up? There it is. Or it's starting to buzz up again. I need to look at that. I can't take a blind eye to it and ignore it. I need to look at it and be brave and be courageous and address it and listen to
Yes.
the message and
Yeah.
learn from, as I'm hearing from you, learn and embrace all of the things that have happened to you that you may think are negative, and grab the learning. What are the teachable moments there? How did it
Mhm.
make you stronger? What did you learn about yourself? Boom. And bring that forward, that part forward.
Exactly. And what I've really learned from you also is when so I mean, I love being a woman leader because I'm not afraid to say, I don't know the answer here, but I know that I can broaden my network. And you've really, shown me that there are networks of amazing, smart women out there, women leaders who together we can have a think tank and figure it out. The mastermind team that you have created and curated has been incredibly helpful. We, present a problem and it's sometimes unique to us, sometimes it's something we've experienced ourselves, but we present a problem and then this incredible think tank comes together to help solve it and throw out ideas based on our own personal experiences. I never had that before. I didn't have mentorship really coming up as a leader, as a female. There were very few mentors in, my career until, the second half of life when I started to broaden and network and of course work with you. So to me, that really, as a female, as a woman leader, I'm very comfortable saying, I need help. I don't know the answer.
Yeah, it's the best.
I don't know why it's so hard to ask for help, but it is.
It is. And thank you, Linda. And the mastermind, yeah, I love that. And the mastermind is the result of you and your energy and your intelligence and all of these other people willing to share in this forum, all for the mutual good. There's just, it's just, and we can all have that. We can all have that in our own. We need to create it, and you need to create it carefully. So, but looking for these support networks is so incredibly important. And I'm so honored and blessed to have you in my network, and so happy. And I know you and I could talk forever on this topic, and we can certainly do more of these webinars, if they're valuable to folks, and
Yeah.
because you and I talk all the time anyway, so it's so fun.
Yes.
Um, but yes, so I think the alignment is really important, finding other folks who
Mhm.
can be supportive, and also challenge you to be better, challenge you to grow. This is just kind of a message for myself and for others, and to be able to reach out to these people,
Mhm.
and be bold. Show up in places where maybe you don't normally go sometimes, if you're looking to expand,
Yeah.
because it's so
Mhm.
easy to, especially these days, you can work at home, you can stay in your little box,
Yes.
you can even run
Oh,
your team from your home, and
yes.
yeah, it's a lot going on there. And if you're not really feeling supported, if you're not feeling like you're really growing and being challenged, then you look outside, because there's some incredible people out there once we
Yes.
get outside of our normal little spot. Yeah.
Yes. And yet, I, I I can't stress enough the importance of finding your people. you know, when you reinvent greatness,
Mhm.
your book and your work around reinventing greatness, it's not someone else's greatness. It's, you know, I mean, I used to compare how I am to, let's say, men who are great, but it's a different type of power and greatness. Everyone has their own identity and, you know, how we define power and greatness and what makes us comfortable. And then we find our people who are like-minded or maybe will challenge us to push a little bit further, you know. And it's not the same for everyone. Greatness, power, you know, our own challenges are unique to us. And I love being in a safe space to be able to share it and help, maybe help someone else.
Oh, you're helping so many people. You already have helped so many people. And we can all create our own psychological safety, right? That's
Mhm.
incumbent upon ourselves to be able to do that. And then bring that to work. And then
Mhm.
it starts to expand out when
That's right.
others will feel that vibe because you're not a threat. You're there, you walk in peace. It's like my horse,
That's right.
Callie. I used to go on trail rides with my horse, Callie. And
Oh,
I could just feel her saying we walk in peace, and there'd be these
oh,
huge fields of
yeah.
deer grazing,
Oh,
and they just kind of look up, and
oh,
none of them would run because
wow.
she had this essence, and we'd be by
Yeah.
ourselves, just her and me. She had this essence of we walk in peace. Oh,
Wow.
it's so beautiful. I've
I
also been on
love
horses
that.
where everyone scatters. So
Yeah. That's beautiful.
good stuff, all fun. And Linda, it's just been such a
Oh,
pleasure to talk
what a
with you
pleasure to
today, and
talk with
such an honor. And maybe
you.
we'll get to do it again.
I
So
hope so.
yeah, and if folks watching this video, if you have questions or comments or thoughts, you can go ahead and post them in the comment section below, because we will look at them, and we'll write back, respond, and if you need additional support, we might do another video. And certainly feel free to reach out to Linda or to myself.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. Okay, bye for now.
Bye.